In this next session, I'll have the pleasure of speaking with two experts from the GIZ Urban Development Cluster in Egypt, Farida Farag and Francois Mengele, about their experiences in promoting climate adaptation and mitigation in cities and informal areas in particular. But first of all, let's have a look at a short video they have prepared that gives us an overview of the results they have achieved through their program in the Greater Cairo area.
وده مشروع التدابير المعماريه المنفذه بمساكن جزيره الذهب، ومن خلال تدخلات غير مكلفه نحاول نعمل مجموعه من العناصر سواء دهان واجهات او زراعه اسقف، كلها بصفه عامه بتهدف ان هي تقلل من تاثير التغير المناخي.
المكون دوت بيدرس تأثير التغيرات المناخية وكيفية زيادة المرونة في المناطق العشوائية، ومن أهم الأنشطة اللي بنقوم بيها في الوقت الحالي هو وضع استراتيجية لمحافظة الجيزة.
المشروع ده اتعمل جوه ساقية مكي وجزيرة الذهب. بدأنا نعمل دراسة السوق ونشوف ايه المنتجات اللي احنا ممكن نزرعها. الجمعية بتوفر لهم البذور والخامات والمحاليل والدعم الفني لو محتاجين أي حاجة.
Well, thank you for this great overview, Farida and Francois, and welcome. Farida, you're the climate change focal point at the Urban Development Cluster. And as an expert, you have the experience, and actually experienced firsthand, that urbanization in Egypt has been shaped to a large extent by the expansion of informal settlement. What are the biggest challenges when implementing climate change mitigation and adaptation measures, and how have you overcome them?
Yes, thank you for this question. The Urban Development Cluster in GIZ Egypt implements its projects in urban informal areas that are facing many challenges that include limited or lack of access to proper infrastructure, health facilities, employment opportunities, and educational facilities. Climate change challenges were not on the top of the priority list when discussing issues with residents. It was also considered a new phenomenon that most residents have not much heard of before. When people's main concerns were increased cost of living, declined health, etc., climate change considerations were irrelevant. The climate change unit needed to start its course of action to raising awareness first by highlighting the relevance of climate change to the general public, namely public health. Through focus group discussions and sessions, people started understanding the connection between climate change and the increased heat that affects the elderly, the children, pregnant women, and often resulting in issues such as heat strokes, etc. This was then followed by implementing small-scale physical measures to demonstrate to the residents some actions they can take to improve their adaptive capacities and therefore improving their overall micro-environmental health. Such measures includes plastering and painting of informal buildings to increase the light reflectivity of the buildings and improve the insulation. Rooftop farming, for example, as well, and urban agriculture and neighborhood greening. These measures were implemented by the project as a pilot. However, it directly involved the residents as a means to provide them with solutions that they can themselves scale up and improve their adaptive capacities and as well their resilience. Thank you.
These highlights, thank you. Dear Francois, you're the head of the Urban Development Cluster in Egypt, which accommodates one of the largest urban portfolio of the German cooperation. And given the complex challenges that the Egyptian context faces, many of which relate to climate change, can you tell us what is your vision for the future and the years to come?
Thank you so much. As you know, GIZ has been working in urban development in Egypt since 2004, and always with a vision actually to empower communities and create opportunities in the most disadvantaged areas through inclusion, participation, and multi-stakeholder dialogue. And this have to continue being central to what we are doing. But what I would like to stress also is that we are currently going through a transition which has enriched our portfolio with another project in the area of water and wastewater, another one in energy, and another one in waste management. This provides us with an incredible amount of leverage to actually chart the vision of urban nexus, and to generate added value in our operations. The urban nexus, which is basically about how we use the hidden potential in those different sectors to make sure that we, through the sectoral mix, actually we achieve greater impact. So the urban nexus approach, which identifies those hotspots, combines various interventions and maximizes the impact, as I said. If I take an example, for instance, our project which is called capacity building through urban infrastructure development. It's operating in Upper Egypt, in Asyut. It's also operating in the Nile Delta in Alexandria and Beira. Climate adaptation has to be looked at in different ways. In Asyut, where it is very hot, people are experiencing heat waves, heat islands, and therefore their vulnerabilities have to be improved. On the other side, in the Nile Delta, it's rather the rise of the sea levels. So it's a totally different configuration. So as you can see, this we combine, working with ministries, the different head stakeholders at the national level, the communities, the governorates, and the private sector to bring about a cohesive approach in tackling the problems of adaptation. And what is central to the urban nexus is that it helps us bridge the gaps between all these actors, between the spaces, the institutional entities, and urban communities.
Francois, thank you. That sounds very promising. I have one last question for you both. Based on your experience, what would be the key ingredient to make climate change mitigation and adaptation happen in cities? Farida.
The most important ingredient for me is the consideration of climate change adaptation and mitigation in itself as a key ingredient in all sectors and all development actions. Its integration in design and planning, in project implementation, and as well in monitoring and evaluation, which makes climate proofing for development action to allow sensitive, responsive, and adaptive design to climate change projects, and improves the sustainability of projects as well. Climate proofing should be a key ingredient in all sectors and not as a standalone approach. Sectors such as infrastructure, utilities, roads, tourism, agriculture, health, etc., also education, employment, and migration are all greatly impacted by climate change, meaning that these sectors could be declining due to the increased heat, sea level rise, and extreme weather events. Likewise, the activities within these sectors are also contributors to the climate crisis, mostly negatively through increased greenhouse gas emissions and other aspects. Therefore, I see that the sectorial dialogue and sectorial coordinated action can better help us urban development practitioners to understand how cities are impacted by climate change, and likewise how climate change impacts cities and people.
Great. So it's about sectorial action and climate proofing and mainstreaming. Francois, what would be for you the key ingredient?
Key ingredients, I will just mention two issues. The one issue is localization, and the other issue is collaboration. On localization, what I have just said about one of our projects, the flagship project, Capacity Building Through Urban Infrastructure Development, it tells us that every city, every place is different. And we have to, the vulnerabilities are different, and we have to look at the resource framework. We have to look at the governance setup to bring about, homemade solutions which fit into the area. And, what I said before about the urban nexus is that it combines a various mix of, measures like, skills development, business advisory services, and so on and so forth, and infrastructure construction and rehabilitation. Now, if you look again at Asyut in the Upper Egypt, and then Beira and Alexandria in the Nile Delta, you will see that they are exposed to different sorts of vulnerabilities, which also command a different way of going about them. And so what you have now in terms of collaboration is telling us the story of the mix of actors. It's through collective action that we can make sure that we address the challenges in a cohesive manner through literacy, for instance, wide-scale literacy among society, and also make sure that the inhabitants are briefed, the local government, the ministries, the private sector, and also to tweak our instrument, the planning instrument, in such a way that they are more helpful to attack the problems, to address the problems that are, upon us. And also the behavioral change is very, very important. Obviously, the budgeting instrument must also be adjusted to give us the possibility to address these issues of vulnerability through collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you both. So localization and collaboration was for you, Francois. Well, thanks for having me with us in this 10 minutes interview. I know you have also a virtual stand, the GIZ Urban Development Program. So dear all, don't hesitate to go on the Global Village and further speak with Francois and Farida about their experiences. Thank you very much. Welcome back. Now we have a very interesting and interactive session coming up, focusing on how cities and territories are taking action to scale up urban resilience. Organized by UCLG, United Cities and Local Government, UN Habitat and UNDRR, the session will explore how cities are embedding resilience in their day-to-day work, and also which capacity building tools are available for cities and city networks to bring this at scale. It's a great and diverse panel moderated by Sarah Huflich, Learning Director of UCLG's World Secretariat. So welcome.